Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
All right, welcome back to Faith Talk, where we talk all things faith and life. Your host, Dr. Robinson, and we're grateful to be back again in this new season number 2. And I'm excited about my first guest for my brand new season. This young lady is definitely somebody I've known practically all of her life, and she is. You'll hear me often refer to different people as my sisters, but this guest this evening is my actual sister. She is really my blood sister. We got the same mama. And I'm just grateful that she's on here tonight. We've been trying to get together for a while, and we're finally going to be able to get our podcast interview going tonight. So let me share just a little bit about who she is, my little sister. She is a native of Columbia, Mississippi. She's a proud graduate of Tougaloo College, where she received her bachelor's degree in political science. She holds a master's in criminology and justice from Jackson State University. She is a mother of 2 wonderful children, my nephew, Timothy, and my niece, Penelope. She's a proud member of the Jackson Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated and the Order of Eastern Star, Armentine, chapter number 7. Did I say that right?
Yeah, you did.
Okay. Okay, I didn't want to mess that up. All right, she's a 2-time self-published author. She's written 2 wonderful books, one called Live Freely and Laugh Often, Love Always, but Live Truthfully, which was published in 2020. And she also published a book entitled The Roots of Her, that was published back in 2022. She's also the founder of a nonprofit organization called The Humble Change Incorporated, which is an organization dedicated to ensuring that Mississippi's youth have both the supports and opportunities they need to thrive, whether as students or also as entrepreneurs. She's a dedicated advocate and leader in the community, and she's been doing that even before her time at Tougaloo College. She's just been working really hard to better the community. She's worked to establish voter protection initiatives and programs that ensure fair and accessible elections. The commitment to civic engagement has helped her to expand access to critical resources and support systems across the state. She's also currently serving as the executive director of the Mississippi Democratic Party. Did I say that right? All right. And she's committed to moving Mississippi forward, embodying a heart of service and an unwavering love for people in her home state. Her motto is, life is a series of beginnings, not endings. And she firmly believes that challenges may tempt us to give up, but every day presents us new opportunities to fight, dream, and to pursue our goals. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I'm proud to introduce tonight and present to you tonight my little sister, Miss Mikel Bolden. How you doing, sis?
I am doing good, brother. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Yes, I'm good. I'm good. And as I mentioned earlier, we've been trying to get this interview done for over a year. I know.
It's definitely been over a year.
Yeah. And we always, we're going to record and we'll look up in another 6 months gone and here we go. But I'm trying to really nail down and stay focused this year and really get this thing together. So I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to jump on this podcast tonight. So I've given the introduction to the people, but is there anything else you wanted to share that I left out perhaps? You just want to open up by just share something with the people, let them know who you are.
Yeah. So as he mentioned, I am, and once again, thank you for having me on your show, your podcast. I appreciate it. I've been watching it, your work, and I am at all. Because I look up to you. I always have looked up to you.
Thank you.
I generally, as he stated, I wear multiple hats, but my direct goal here in Mississippi is to ensure that our communities and youth are engaged with knowing their rights, their voting rights, whether or not it's legal rights or just have the opportunity to have these resources that may not be privy to them due to their situation. So I'm very passionate about my communities. I'm very passionate about my state. I know sometimes people looking like, that it takes a lot to do this work, and it does. And especially having two children, it's not
Hmm.
always easy, to maneuver. And sometimes you got to, make sacrifices. You cut off here, cut off there, but definitely will do all that I can to ensure that not only my two have everything, but those that are in the community also have the access to those things.
Talked about you being a mother and a published author and a community activist and just a responsible person in general.
Mhm.
So we could see even back then that God was preparing you for what he had destined and designed for you to do in the community. All right. And so when you talk about community activism, civic engagement, and that kind of stuff, what do you believe is the most important role that community activism plays with fostering social change?
That's
What
a
do you
good
think?
question.
What kind of lights your fire to even get in the fight, to even be a person that's kind of the sounding, I guess the vanguard for trying to bring about change in the community, in the community in which you live.
Yeah. So really what brought about the change is primarily, our mom. Our mom is a little bit older, and just trying to explain to her the process, as well as like I had like family members that like, okay, well, you're involved in this, like what's going on? So I figured that if my own family, that they go vote, and they may not just know directly things that are happening right now. So it's like explaining it to them. It's like, well, if they're misinformed about things, then I feel like everybody else in the community may be misinformed as well. And so going around visiting, doing different workshops throughout the state, you grow to learn that you will assume that people know some of these things. You will assume that they have access to the information, and sometimes that's not always true. So my passion for this came from just simply that, just simply informing one person that trickled into more. And with that, being able to not only be a part of change within different communities, but also bringing my children along to have them watch and see and learn different avenues of about other people and just different situations that may be happening within civic engagement. Like Mississippi is a red state, Louisiana, is as well. So, it's the deep South that we suffer the most. Sometimes, people will say, well, you have to be the change that you want to see. Now, I
Mhm.
know the fruits of my labor, I may not actually gain anything from doing what I'm doing right now in the next year or 5 years. I feel like, hey, if I don't start now, when will it start? And not to say that others aren't out there, doing the work. It's so many groups, so many people, so many advocates out there within the communities. And I think once we all learn to continue to work hard, to continue to inform people, give them correct information, as well as work together, I think we'll be mighty strong within the South. And, people will learn that the South really does have something to say when it comes down to everything. We're looked at as, the lowest, and, sometimes people think we're incompetent, and people may think that, oh, you all aren't as educated as, us up north, or whatever, all those semantics that happens within the thing. But just really trying to make sure that our people have a chance to move forward. And that's kind of like what led me into doing my book. Like when I did my books, I did those based off of like, I lost my best friend. She was my very first friend. I lost her in 2019. And before she passed, like we were talking about like, hey, we don't live forever. And she was asking me like, well, why won't you, publish your work? And I'm like, I don't really know if people really gonna listen. And I don't even know if, if it's gonna help somebody for real. But all in all, once I published it, I published the first book, and the books are based off of just my own path within life. Like for Live Freely, I won't go into the full title, but Live Freely book is what I call it.
Mhm.
For that book published in 2020, it was primarily from the time of me growing up from like, might as well say like middle school. middle school up until my adulthood, because I actually, I went through a divorce after I had my children. And so that was my way of like putting pen to paper. And we went through so many loss during that time that it helped me like get that information out. And then on top of that, I was like, okay, well, we'll see how this goes. And if people like it and they're able to relate, and just so happened people did. Some people were telling me they were using it as a guide to get through some of the things that they were going through. So just that alone, because I didn't make the transition within my career until February of 2023. Like my background is in the legal field. I did paralegal work, legal admin work for 8.5 years before I even touched political world. And so I'm like, I'm more than certain that I'm able to make an impact. It's just like, where do I start? And then sometimes you just got to start. You don't have to have a destination. You just got to start.
Yeah. Yeah. You said a mouthful with all that you just said, because, number one, you see your calling as opportunity to serve not just yourself, but an opportunity to serve others. And you're drawn out, it's drawn out of you to give of yourself to be in service to others. And then the whole idea of when you mentioned about your book, when you got the whole idea about writing a book. And the question you raised was, well, why should I write? Who's going to want to hear what I got to say? But, that's even a lesson I've learned, is that, it's not always about, a lot of times we trap ourselves because we think that quite naturally, we don't think we're capable of doing certain things. And so we're like, well, I do it. Who's going to do it? Because I was even sharing on the podcast before, when I got the idea to launch a podcast, why would I launch a podcast? Who's going to listen to me? Who am I supposed to be? But just trust God for the results. And we do what we have to do. And so you wrote your book without knowing that you were going to be touching people's lives. But God knew whose life you were going to touch. And then getting into community, more into the political world versus your law background, because God had destined you to be that person who's going to be running the race to try to make lives better. And speak to those, be a voice to those people, or be the one that educates people on what it means to be a responsible citizen in voting and all those kinds of things. So yeah, that's great. That's great. So, we did mention in your bio that you are the executive director of the Democratic Party. Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
For the Mississippi. And, we just back in November had the election, and I know leading up to the election, you were running and going and doing all kinds of things. But what I'm curious to hear about is some of those experiences you had while you were doing that work leading up to the 2024 November election. So what has it been like being the Democratic, leader in that particular organization?
Yeah, it is very heavy. It is extremely heavy. And during that moment prior to the election, we had the Democratic National Convention that happened, where we went to Chicago, and we were able to accept our nominee Kamala Harris at that time, as well as make the announcement by the state. One thing I can say is it was a very beautiful experience for me, because one, that was my first national convention going to, and just being at all that. 60 years prior, we had Fannie Lou Hamer, who went and spoke on behalf with the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party. So it was just, you see the evolvement, although some things still are the same, and although we still fight some of the same battles, it was a warming moment in being a part of that process, where I'm able to make sure my delegation was okay, make sure that, we had all the things that we need. Coming back, it was like I was so activated, I was so ready to go. But what was disheartening was people misinterpreting what was going on. And you have people who were generally, just like I was saying earlier, misinformed. They were misinformed about the election process. They were misinformed about Trump's actual goals and objectives and initiatives that he was going to put in place. They were misinformed primarily because of social media. You have social media who gives you parts of the things, and people will take that and run with it. Like, oh, well, that sounds good. He's going to do this. No, but what is the general outcome of that? So you have like, even the thing right now, you have the DEI situation. And with the DEI situation, what's people are looking at it as, well, it's going to stop Black people from having a chance. No, what happens is you're taking away from those who are disabled. You're taking away from those who may become pregnant. They want to expand their family. Look at the balloons. They may want to expand their family, and that woman or that man, they don't get that 6 weeks to recuperate and just embrace their new family and just heal. They don't get that chance. That gets taken away from them. Having disabilities being acknowledged when it comes down to even just going to the store, that's being taken away. When it comes down to the schools, that all of that's going to disappear. So what will that actually look like? And are people going to be happy with the outcome? But like, really, I was hopeful. I really had faith that she actually was going to win. And I don't know if it was just because I'm like, it's no way, in my mind, it's no way people are going to go for this. And if they do, like, it's going to be terrible for us. It's going to be terrible for us. And ever since he got in office, it has been. But one thing I can say, went to church yesterday with Mom, and I'm like, the preacher was just saying, he was like, we have this president and he may be doing some things that we may not like, but again, we have to pray for him. We have to pray and see if he's going to be the one to make a difference when it's all said and done. And yeah, it's hurtful. Yes, we're going to go through tough times. Who knows how tough? And then especially like with Democrats right now, it's been so much of a tug of war of things, and it always has been. But I really would like for people to like reach back in their rich history of political aspects of just, what's going on right now for them to understand what we're looking at. And, I don't know. And even with Democrats, like, we're fighting hard, but we don't really know what that generally is going to look like. We don't know how far he's going to go. So being in leadership at this moment is really just trying to encourage the people like, hey, if you don't do anything right now, educate yourself, educate your family, educate those that are around you. I don't care if you don't agree with me. And one thing, like, don't get me wrong, I would love people to vote Democrat, but I would love people to just get out and vote. That's one thing people, they don't feel that their vote counts. And I get it, because voting is really like planting a seed. Like, you plant a seed today, that don't mean you're going to have a flower or a plant or some type of, whatever you planted, it don't mean you're going to reap that harvest tomorrow. You have to cater to it. Sometimes you may even have to uproot it and put it in something else because it has outgrown. The roots have outgrown. And you still may not see anything sprout. But you got to keep your faith, and you got to keep catering to whatever it is that you've planted, and know that eventually something will harvest. That's really how I have been, like, really approaching things right now. And don't get me wrong, it's hard, but how I handle it is balance. Like, I literally have boundaries when it comes down to stuff. Like, over the weekend, like, we saw each other over the weekend, and I literally, like, my phone was still ringing, but I was like, no, I'm with my family right now, because this can be very taxing. And within the political realm, it is very taxing. Like, it's not, don't get me wrong, I'm passionate about it, but that does not mean that it doesn't get hard. That does not mean that I don't get tired, that I don't get frustrated, because the battles that we have to fight, that takes a lot of energy. And it takes a lot of courage, really, to even continue to do it, continue to wake up every day to have the same outcome the next day. It's very hard, but, at the end of the day, doing the work, you have to set boundaries. You have to set also realistic expectations. Like, I may go and speak in front of a group, and I may have 100 people there, but I may only reach 10 people. Well, guess what? Those 10 people know 10 other people, or maybe even one other person. And who's to say who they're going to touch? So it's kind of like I got to keep going, but I also got to keep my boundaries and make sure my mental health is fine. Make sure that I'm not neglecting what's in my household, and just making sure that I'm not drowning myself so much in the work that I'm letting it affect my mental. So that's, to answer you, that's pretty much how I see myself within leadership from then up until now.
Yeah. Was there any crazy, got any crazy stories about any from, especially from those who were on the other side of the aisle, so to speak? Crazy.
you have, listen, it's so bad because you have people, it was protests that were going on while we were at the convention. So that's safety issues. It was a whole thing where, with us being at the convention, they had sent people to like put stuff in food, and we were like going to eat at these places, and like some people had got sick, and so they shut down our hotel for a while. And it was
Whoa.
like, it was just so much stuff that was happening. And then it's like you're unknowing of what people are thinking. So like on my travel backpack, I have like Democratic pins and stuff. And like I don't take it off because my thing is your personal opinion, your personal preference is not mine. And I'm not gonna get angry at you because you may call me out my name or something. I feel bad for you because you can't walk past me without expressing your hate or your hatred. And then even within the job, you get phone calls. When I say people, I won't repeat what they say, but
Really?
just to say it is very much still well lived, especially here in Mississippi. They are not afraid to tell you what they think. Now they will hide and like call unknown and all those things, but they're not afraid to voice their opinions and tell you exactly what they're thinking. So
Wow.
that has happened. Especially with Kamala when she was running. I don't know why you guys think, you're gonna get a black woman in office, and which they didn't call her that. I'm calling her a black woman, but that's not what they call her, you know, and
I
having
can
to
only,
listen to that. Listen, it's rough. And then even to the point where like I know my job and like what it entails, but you never know someone's intentions. And like don't get me wrong, like I had to do interviews and stuff. And so for me, I'm just more so worried about like my safety when I'm just with my children, like, and we're just going to the store. Like, if somebody look at me and they notice me and they're like, "Oh, that's her from the executive, from the Mississippi Democratic Party. She's the executive director." I'm finna cause chaos. So, like, I'm finna try to intimidate her, and it's like that. Now, that is something that plays in my head and that like kind of sits with me a little bit. But what I do, one thing that we all do in my household, we do devotionals every morning.
Mhm.
We have honest conversations like, hey, some people not gonna like you, and some people not gonna like you because of your skin color. Some people not gonna like you because of what your beliefs are. But at the end of the day, you keep believing in what you believe in. You can't change how you look because I mean that's not, you're gonna grow older. That's gonna change, but don't be ashamed of who you are.
Mhm.
And that's something I try to instill in them. But it's hard. It's definitely hard. In Mississippi, it's hard because even growing up, some of the same stuff, even being in Columbia, it's some stuff that I experienced that I was like, and that came from a high school counselor, going to a drugstore, which was a family owned drugstore by that family. And, just a question of, can you afford this? And you shouldn't be here type attitude, it's very much, live, but I don't know. It's it's a thing that I don't know if it will ever die for real, but I just hopes it becomes manageable to the point where we don't be afraid to, even have a political preference, let alone
Mhm.
a political view, on things.
Yeah. Yeah. I know when you were, on that campaign trail and doing all y'all were doing, I know I prayed for you all the time because, I'm thinking, we live in a world now where people, nobody has respect for other people's opinions or viewpoints or ideals about things. And, the reality is everybody going to have different views on how the country should be governed,
Yeah.
state should be, but nobody has the ability to respect the other people's opinions if they're the opposite of theirs. And usually, we live in a world now, people believe what you believe and they get violent and get aggressive and you down. And it's so crazy. So I would always say, man, she's traveling, she's doing her thing. She's just trying to make a difference and she's just sticking to her convictions and doing her,
Yeah.
doing what she's called to do. But I know there's some crazy people out there
Yeah.
who, and the weird thing about some of them think they're doing it in the name of God, in the name of Christianity, in the
Yeah.
name of, that makes it even worse. And so I pray for you. I pray for you daily. Yeah.
I
You want to say
appreciate
what?
I I appreciate that wholeheartedly because it's like those times it's like, God, if you gonna cover me, if I don't do nothing crazy, please cover me. but I know he'll cover me regardless. One thing I was going to say is, just going back on what you were saying about, just trying to stick with your belief going through it. I watched this interview where, don't even remember, it was Farrakhan. He was talking to a group of white, I guess you say it was a white coalition. It was like a mixture crowd, but he was trying to explain to them, like, you get an opportunity to do this. They were angry at him by even acknowledging that they have a step up from what us as, of the African descent have. And it's just sad because, you have those moments where, for us, one thing that I feel like has happened a lot, even being a Black woman in both professional careers, is no matter what my resume says, no matter how articulate I am, no matter how I can, plan, strategize, whatever, I'm still questioned on my capability to fulfill these duties. And it's like, how is that fair? When you're over here and you're just talking nonsense. Like, I'm really talking facts, I'm talking information. And, the only thing you really do is just pray for those people, stay steadfast. And even crazier, even when you're going through like your own dark moments, it can't be shown, because if it shows up at any point, the devil like weakness, the devil like chaos and confusion. So he's going to try to like play on that. And when that happens, you'll start doubting yourself. You'll start doubting even your views and your beliefs, because it'll come out, or you'll start seeing things. You know how, what is the algorithm will change with stuff. Let's say, for instance, you're thinking something, you get on the internet and it starts popping up and you be like, this doesn't make sense. So it's kind of like replacing those negative thoughts with positive thoughts, and replacing that negative energy with positivity, prayer, and just remaining eyes on the prize.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And so you did speak. I was going to ask you a question as it relates to your, the role that your faith and your belief and your walk with God, what role that plays in that. But I think you did touch on that a little bit. But let's go ahead. Let me just go ahead and get you to, just kind of share, how that whole process works for you.
Yeah.
I know you are a praying mama. I know, you kids pray. I know that. But I want you to, just, if you can, just kind of share with the world how your faith and all that stuff integrates with what you're doing as a mother and a community activist and an author and a nonprofit leader, all that good stuff.
Yeah, no problem about that at all. I can say that, don't get me wrong, I've always been a praying, faithful person, but when I went through some of my dark moments, I know you guys heard me mention about divorce early on. When I went through divorce, I also went through a very dark moment, because not only that, I lost my job like in the middle of COVID. So I was without a job, having to take care of my children. And it's like my family was there assisting me. And I won't say angry with God, but I had to learn, like, how they say, give him your burdens and, let it go. I was giving him my burdens, but I was also holding like a little satchel, like, oh, okay, well, I'm gonna hold on to this. I gave you this, but I'm gonna hold on to the little stuff, which really wasn't little. But I had to learn in that process to trust him, trust what I was going through, trust that, even in those dark moments, it's a method to all chaos. And I did not understand that, primarily, one, because I had to heal from a lot of things. There was some things and trauma that I went through in my life just as a young child due to others. But I had to learn to get through that. Once I learned to get through that, I learned to actually depend on God, give God everything, whether it's good, bad, ugly, in between, give it all to him. And as I'm going through work, like, thank you, God, for blessing me with this job. I don't care that Susie and Diane over here arguing with me every day just because they may be jealous of where I am in life, or if I'm feeling like someone's nitpicking. Like, I have to make sure that I keep myself humble. And in order for me to do that, one passion of mine is writing. Another passion is just music. Sometimes people may think something's wrong with me and I'm shutting down, but what happens is I'm recollecting myself. I'm talking with God in those moments. whether I'm listening to music or not, like I'm talking to God, I'm going through what I need to go through, and I'm trusting Him with every step. And I'm like, okay, God, I'm about to go out here and do this. Show me what I'm supposed to be doing. And sometimes even, I've gone and had conversations or done, not even just voter education, just within even my nonprofit, going to talk to young adults, the youth, and I'll go there prepared to talk about one thing, and then it transforms into something else, and from that, a connection is made. For the longest, even being in this role, I questioned my own ability of whether or not I was capable of doing it, and it was like, God, these people asked me to do this, and I was crazy enough to do it, and here I am, and I don't even know if I'm capable of doing this. And what He showed me along the way, and this was I took the position late June of last year, and this was directly after my knee surgery. And I took the job, and I'm like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can do this. Like, I've never been to a national convention. I had to come in and fix like a whole bunch of issues that were happening and things that had happened. I'm looked at to fix it. And I'm like, but it didn't happen with me. But everybody's like, well, you're the person now. You got to fix it. And so I'm praying to God, like, what type of maze did you put me on? Like, what did I do to deserve this? But as I continued to go through the process, it was like, I questioned this, and then I got praise on this side, like, you did a great job, or I'll get resources. Like, it was like and then ever since then, things have just been opening up. Like, it's just become easier and easier. Don't get me wrong, not too easy, but it has been a easy stepping stone for me when I literally was like, hey, God, just guide me. I don't know what my purpose is. And something I always say, you're always where you're supposed to be when you're supposed to be there. And, and something I say to Mom all the time, and she does not like it, is if it's meant to happen today, it's going to happen today. If it's not meant to happen, it won't happen. Because you know how she is when we're traveling, and she's like, you just never know. And I'm like, well, Mom, if it's my day, it's my day. Don't say that. And I'm like, well, I'm being honest, because that's really after I healed and after I gained my relationship back with God, like in depth, to the point where I was actually not holding a satchel, like I gave Him everything. That's literally how I live my life. It's kind of how I live my life all this time, but even more now, I do it with even more passion. Like, I'm smiling while I say it. Like, if it's meant for me, baby, it's gonna happen. If it's not, then hey, it just wasn't my time. He's not gonna. We always question whether or not we feel like we're praying for this and He hasn't blessed me with it yet. Well, are you really ready for it?
Right.
And you get ready to, like, when you get ready to take a test, if you prepare for this test, then your results and your grade is going to show. Now, if you say, well, man, I got a test on next Thursday, and you keep saying it, and now it's the Wednesday before the Thursday and you haven't studied, you're gonna have to reap what you did. Like, you didn't prepare. So the only thing I could do, and the only thing I have been doing lately, is just like, hey, I try to, and one thing, like, both of us, we get up early. We talk about how early we get up in the morning. It's, for me, I call it like setting my tone for the day. Like, I get up super early, and I'll, relax, depending on what I have to do. We'll start back with my workout plan, but I take those moments to meditate for myself. I'm setting my tone for when I wake up my children. I don't care what burden I have. God, let's talk. Let's go through this. How, like, I may not know, how to approach a situation. I may be going through something within parenting, and I feel stressed out because, one, now I'm having guilt trip because I've been traveling, and now this is going on. I never painted my life to be perfect, but some people look at you, and because you have some of the things that they want, they'll say, hey, well, your life perfect already. No, it's not.
No.
It's not perfect. And so in those moments, like, and even I went through this last week. I was talking to Mom about it. I'm like, I was having guilt because I'm like, I just don't know if I'm really supposed to be doing this. Like, I'm traveling all the time. I don't even know if my kids really, if they feel a certain type of way, which I'm very candid with them. Like, we talk about it. We talk about why I have to travel, where I'm going to be at. because you just never really know what's going to happen. And I don't want them, me departing them and them like, well, I don't know where my mom at. I don't know what she doing. No, this is the work that I do. This is what it requires of me. And so with that, I had a moment last week where your nephew had his moment, and I was feeling bad because I was like, well, maybe I need to find another job. Maybe I need to, do this because it just seems like it's not working. Like I'm traveling. He may be, having a response to me traveling. He may feel like I'm not giving him enough attention. Then I start questioning, am I giving him enough attention? And then I was like, you know what? Why don't I question myself? I start praying about it. Read devotionals, and then over the weekend, as the days got a little bit better, I was in my feelings for maybe a day or so, but I had to channel in what I was giving to God, like making sure I was giving him everything versus, well, I'm going to give you this, God, and then I'm still over here swarming in my head trying to figure things out when it's not really meant for me to figure out. It's meant for me to hand off. And with that, this weekend, it was a transition that happened where I'm like, okay, I got my answers. Well, part of them at least, but I feel better. But I'm not carrying a satchel. I'm not carrying a little handbag. I literally gave it away. So that's really how I look at, my faith and my walk within even just my work and just the passion that I have in things. Like I feel like, honestly, because even starting a nonprofit, I'm just like, man, it's a 1,000 people out here doing nonprofit for you. Who's going to, pay attention to me? Who's going to hear what I got to say? What youth is going to be involved? Well, we got a board. I got 5 youth ambassadors. We're able to go to conferences, to go talk to attorneys and things to try to get other programs for the youth that they're defending. So it's like, you just have to, in the moment of whatever you're trying to do, you just have to know that you are the only person that can really stop or start whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. You got to keep going, because one thing, a quote that I saw, or maybe it was a statement, something, but people will say, we always look for our family and our friends to support us. Sometimes it'll be a stranger that'll support you before your family and friends, and you got to be okay with that. Like, you really have to be okay with that. And we feel, and I think it's like as a human thing, we kind of feel like our family and friends are obligated to support us when, I'll honestly, no, they're not. Everybody don't support Walmart and Target. Everybody don't go to Publix or Whole Foods. Some people like Dollar General, Dollar Tree, and that's the furthest they gonna go. So you have to understand that sometimes your level just ain't meant to be in their space at the time, and then sometimes they can't. It may be a moment where they're just not in the moment of accepting where you are, and then sometimes they just may want to support somebody else, or they may not see the vision that you see, but it's not theirs to see. It's yours. It's yours.
Oh yeah, I know that all too well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so, when you think about the future, your vision and future, looking ahead, and, I know you have a heart and passion for the work that you do, whether it's, community work or your nonprofit work or just raising them babies. When you think about the future, do you see, or you think there's any hope for the future? In terms of your perspective, do you think that, the work that's being done, I think you kind of touched on it earlier, alluded to it earlier, it's like seeds, the seed being planted, the harvest and the produce may not come as fast as we think it should. So do you think, what's kind of your future outlook on life and the community and things of that nature? Do you think you're going to see, or do you hope to see some of the change that you're aspiring to see with the work that you do?
Yeah, I honestly, and I always say this, people look at me crazy, but I say like within the next probably a good 5 years, I think, and I may be pushing it to say 5 years. It may be less than that. It may be a little bit more, but in my mind and in the vision that I see and the work that I'm going to do to try to get there, I feel like it's going to be some type of change, some type of shift that's going to happen and it's going to happen within the 3-year mark of that 5 years. But on that 5th year, I feel like it's going to be a dramatic shift, transition, change that's going to shift the world, shift communities, and it's going to bring light to the work that, people in the communities are doing. It's going to bring light to rightness, within the world. I think people are right now seeing it, but some people are not ready to make a call of action. So it's like, we got to make sure this person understands that it's not a convincing thing. It's more so of, okay, let's figure this out and see how can I reach you. So when you're having a conversation with people, like, what are they interested in? What touches them in order for them to see what you have? And it's a vision that I have, and I feel like that's just the timeline. Now, whether or not my timeline is off or a little bit under or a little bit over, who knows? But I know it's going to take some work. It's going to take about, with certain things, it takes 21 days to make a habit or, remove a habit. So
Yeah, 21.
yeah. So with that, how many times we're going to have to restart, reboot? You have 21 days and you're like, okay, well, this went well, but after, looking through this, like, I should have did this. So let me try 21 more days and let's see what that looks like. Okay, well, this worked, but this didn't work this time. So let's reroute. So it's going to be a lot of rerouting, rebooting, retriggering, like trying to really figure out the navigation of how to get a complete change all over. But eventually it's going to happen. I got faith that it's going to happen. History always repeats itself. And sometimes the bad part of history has been repeating itself a little bit faster than it should, or that we feel that it should, rather. But it'll happen sooner or later.
Yeah, and I have a tendency to look at life through spiritual lenses always first. And, when we see all the stuff that's happening and, Trump winning and people, you still hear all this rhetoric about this, that, and the other. And a lot of things are happening. But there's several ways to look at it. And I think the lens at which we look at it will determine how we respond and how we feel about a hopeful future and all those kinds of things. So I'm very hopeful. Even though it looks grim based off the lens that I look through scripture and, just understanding how God works. God is not asleep. And if Trump was allowed to win, then it was for a reason that's above our ability to understand. Yet still we continue to fight and do the work we do, believe what we believe, and try to make things better. And, and you, because God is inspiring you to do the work that you're doing, even though it looked like, it's going a whole different way. All right.
Yeah, and now to add on to before we close out, one thing, and it's a quote that I put in one of my books. God grants us with a gift, and it's a compliment if we use it. It's a compliment to Him if we use it. And a lot of people out here mismanaging their gifts, and so once we align with our gifts and our paths. Like a quote that, to me personally, that I have, and when I came up with, like, your goals are just safety checkpoints in the blueprint created for you. So we can have goals all day, but you got a blueprint that's already written for you. Your goals are safety checkpoints for you as you see whatever you see. But for what God has planned for you, they're just safety checkpoints. You go, okay, that's your goal. Okay, well, God's like, okay, well, you got about 2 more years before you get to what you're actually aspiring to get to. That's your goal, not mine. So we just have our own, safety checkpoints, and we just know that we just got to appreciate the path that God puts us on. We're going to question it sometimes, but we should embrace it a little bit more, because we're never in a place where we're not supposed to be. And sometimes that comes with hurt, pain, and sometimes that comes with, a little bit of damage too. But it's a method to all His madness that he puts us through, and we just gotta appreciate and enjoy the ride and trust Him in His guidance. He's our tour guide. We're just here.
That's it. I love that. All right. Well, we're gonna get ready to sign off. So I'll ask you to give us just a final word, final something for everybody to take away, any kind of word of inspiration or anything. Any kind of advice for somebody who's trying to juggle life and career, or just trying to navigate life or whatever in general. If you just give us a final word on that, and then tell us tell people if they, how they can reach you, follow you, social media, and also share your books. We didn't even give you a chance
Yeah.
to let's do that. Yeah. Let's
Yeah,
talk.
I could do it all in the wrap
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
I could
Yeah.
do it all in
We
the wrap
don't
up for
miss
you.
that. We
So
don't want to miss that. Yeah.
for anybody that's, before I mention anything about the books, rather, for anybody going through, a time where they're feeling challenged and they're wanting to go, you're wanting to go pursue something that it's been weighing on you for years. Well, it's not going to stop weighing on you until you actually take action on it. So take action on it. It's not there for no reason, and if he brought it to you, he'll see you through it. You just got to manage in how your life is going to look for you. Make sure you set boundaries, whether it's to your friends, your family, even yourself. Sometimes we can overexert ourselves. Like, people know I'm capable of doing stuff, and I know I'm capable. Sometimes I don't know how to say no. And sometimes it's like,
Where you at?
I don't know how to say no, but I need to say no this time because I haven't done XYZ. I haven't spent time with my family. I haven't just taken a moment for myself. So just know, if it's brought to you in the vision, it's not going to die. I promise you it's not going to die, because the vision of me writing my books, that was with me since 2009. Look at when I published my book, because I procrastinated, not because I had lack of. It's because I doubted myself. I doubted, and I was like, I don't think I'm ready. I don't think I'm ready. It's not about when you're ready. It's about when he calls you to do this action. You have to just do it. I don't care how uncomfortable it is. You have to do it. So leading in with that, live freely, laugh often, love always, but live truthfully. The book itself really expounds on how to just live. Sometimes we put so many, chains on ourselves where we don't even know how to live for real. We just be existing. And then with the laugh often portion, you know, sometimes, you got to laugh to keep from crying. People say that a lot. And that's my approach I took. And these both books are set off in sections. The first one is set off in sections. The Roots of Her is actual chapters. But Love Always is within that section. It's just basically talking about how, people may not do you right all the time. Sometimes family, sometimes friends, sometimes a stranger. But you have to, extend love. You know how they say love one another. It didn't say you had to like them. It say love one another. You give out love. By giving out love, you give out grace. That's how I see it. And that's something, because one of my friends asked me, like, how do you forgive so easy? Just because I'm talking to him, just because I'm showing grace, does not mean that I've truly forgiven. Now, it takes time to get through that process, which is why But Live Truthfully. I understand that I'm still hurt. I understand that, I'm laughing through this pain, but it hurts every day, and it's been hurting me for all this time. I understand that I'm living freely, but I have this person over here, John and Harry, that's judging me throughout the process of me living freely, not knowing what type of steps that I'm actually taking. So that's generally how that book is structured. The Roots of Her was more so directly after all of that. Like, the first book was kind of like a collection of pieces that I had written before, also pieces that I had written while going through a divorce, while becoming a mother, while just trying to navigate life as a mother, as a single parent. And so The Roots of Her kind of it opens up and tells you how I got to where I am. Like, you have a poem in there, two poems in there. It's kind of like in the back, it's like a reflection poems. So you have the brown table and you have the round table. The brown table is kind of like, how at mom house we sit down and we talk at the table.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a reflection of family talk and how family can be depicted. And then you have the round table. The round table is what I consider as your professionalism, your job. You sit at the round table, you got to stand up for yourself. You sit at the brown table, you got to stand up for yourself. So that's just two poems within there, but it really shows you who I am and how I got to where I am right now. And both are books of poetry. So it's poetry pieces, and that's how I express myself. Because as I was growing up, when I started going through moments where, people had hurt me because they were hurt, that was the only way I knew to speak out. Like, don't get me wrong, I talked to mom and stuff, but a lot of stuff she did not know until I was an actual adult. primarily because I didn't know, like, I'm trying to protect her and her feelings, and really, in all honesty, you know, taking the blame for things as a child was just, it was crazy. But the roots of her, you know, kind of, it outlines, you know, me as an adult and how I view life now, and moments that brought me to where I am, me realizing that, you know, you have to sit down at those tables and talk. You have to know that life comes as moon phases. You'll have a full moon where you feel fully fulfilled. You'll have a half moon where you feel like you've been tugged away. So those are the books, and, you know, primarily what they're about, the depth of them, and the way that, you know, they were structured is with segments, because I want people to understand and be able to flow and understand my wordings. And sometimes some people have to go back and read, or I'll explain something to them. I have no problem doing that, because sometimes a lot of things aren't easy to dissect, especially if you have like your own trauma, your own things that you're dealing with, right? So that's, hopefully I'm not extremely long-winded, but that's part of it. And that's another reason why the life is a series of beginnings, not endings, is one of my favorite mottos, because if you get 24 hours, you need to do something with those 24 hours. And if, you know, you get a chance to start over. It doesn't matter how many times you have to start over, but you get a chance. Some people don't get that chance.
That's good.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
That's good. All right, sis. If they wanted to purchase your books, how can they get those?
So you can purchase a book. So they are on, like, it's on Amazon, it's on Walmart.com. You could go to Goodreads. But if you want a signed copy for me, as well as the bookmarks that I have, or a t-shirt even, you go to www.blossomstruth.org, and you can place your order there. You'll receive updates on your order. And you can also go on the website and see like some of the previous speaking moments that I've had, some previous poems, some of the poems that are actually in the book, and some of them just are, you know, moments where I just had conversations or just events that I participated in as a poet. And then you could, social media is the same thing for either the nonprofit is The Humble Change on Facebook and Instagram. For poetry, it's Blossoms Truth. And then Facebook, my name is Mikel Taylor on there. And then on Instagram is Poet Blossom, Poem Blossom Heart. I may have said that wrong, and that's my own Instagram name, but you'll find me. Eventually, you find one of those pages, you'll find me.
Yeah, and what I actually do is, if you would just send me the information, and I'll just post it in the show notes. And if anybody wants to, you know, go to the links or what have you, they can go straight to it and have access to it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, sis. Well, I appreciate you stopping by. Finally,
And
we
I
had a chance.
appreciate it. Listen, we got it done. We got now we got something we can say. We did it. We did it.
We got it done. We've been doing it for years. It's been about 2 years. Been planning this episode. But I appreciate you. You know, we're extremely proud of you.
I appreciate you.
You know, you have been with me. I'm 17 years older than you. For those of you who. So since she's a little baby, she's always been on my hip, always with me. And, you know, I just watched her grow from a little girl, just always ambitious and driven and focused and just wanting to do all that she does. And now she's a woman, and all that I've seen, you know, as you develop, you know, it's just all coming to fruition. So we're just so proud of you, and we love you, and we're just grateful. You know, we're in a space now that we can, you know, have these kinds of connections, both in, you know, in our worlds, trying to make a difference in this world. You know, I'm preaching, pastoring nonprofit and the community activism and political space. But you're doing your thing. So just keep on doing your thing. And just know that we're proud of you. And anything we can do to help you, you know, we always, you know, we got your back 150%.
Absolutely. And same here. I'm appreciative.
Yeah, we love you. We thank God for you. And we're going to let you go and enjoy the rest of your evening.
All right. And you too, big bro. And continue doing what you're doing. Don't give up on your path. You got this.
I'm gonna stick with it this time.
All right. I love y'all.
Yeah, good night. Love you. All right.
Audio Jungle.